Yeah, okay, I get it. Just like, where is it though? There we go.
Hello, hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fine. Abby must be on a different call.
I'm
How's
sorry, I
the,
was telling the person that I had to go because I was on this.
I see. How's the little girl doing?
She's good. I was just thinking about today how you got to meet her, and that was so nice.
Yes.
She really liked you.
Yes. What it is for little babies like that, it's a different voice. She's accustomed to your voice. She's not accustomed to my voice.
Yeah. Well, she did like you very much, though.
Yes.
So that was nice.
But it's Joe Plandowski. How could you not like him?
No, well, Joe and I happened to run into each other at the post office, and Juliet was very taken with him.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
She's a very cute girl. Very
Thank you.
cute.
She is. She is.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Abby.
Oh, thank you. In case you didn't know, Dan, I had a
Yeah.
baby in early October.
I did not know, and yeah, I can only see you from here up. So I was,
Well, that's the thing. People didn't know, but that was why I think I might have missed our last meeting. So I had a good excuse, which was that I had recently given birth.
how dare you?
Yeah, well, I'm here today, so
Well, congrats and good to see you, and
thank you.
well wishes to everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Barry, do we have a quorum?
Uh, we do. There he is. I just saw Jack pop on board. So I'm off traveling today. Once again, we're supposed to wind up. Marianne had an appointment at MGH, and as we got part of the way up there, we got a phone call from her doctor, and he canceled out. So I was just like, oh, come on. I was really hoping to be at MGH to be able to sit down in a civilized environment, but here we go. You're gonna have to suffer with where I am and sitting at the car at the moment and praying for the best with internet.
And Barry, I have to leave about 5 minutes to two for a doctor's appointment to check out my cataract surgery that I just got through.
Oh, congratulations and good luck.
Yeah,
So,
painless, absolutely painless, and the best
it,
thing that happened.
yeah, absolutely amazing what they can do.
Joe, just
Uh,
noting, Juliet is looking over because she heard you talking.
where is that?
That's great.
Well, she's like, I remember that man. Where is he?
Yep, absolutely. So we will try to keep things brief and on target today. Just for a number of different reasons at the moment. But thank you everyone for showing up. My sincere apologies for not being there at the last meeting. Nothing worse than traveling internationally and getting food poisoning. And it's just, oh,
No need to apologize.
frightful. But anyways, all right. So with that in mind, we're recording, and so let us get started. I would love to, let me just do a roll call real quickly. Abby D. Molina,
Here.
Joe Plandowski,
Here.
Jacques Simicki,
Here.
and Barry Rector is the chair. I'm here too, and as a guest, as faithfully, Dan Berger. So
Present, and guess what? I am actually on island, so it's fitting that you aren't here. So yeah,
we got. I didn't know we had a swap deal between the two of us, but what can I say?
Hey, there you go.
Anyways, just as always, just to remind you, this is an remotely done meeting. So everything we're going to do that requires any official status will require a roll call vote from people. And that's all I'm going to say on that. You have an agenda before you at this point. I'd love a motion to approve that agenda if someone doesn't mind.
I'll make a motion.
And
I'll second.
motion's made and seconded. No discussion at this point. So Joe, just in favor of the agenda.
Aye.
Okay, Abby,
Aye.
Jacques,
Aye.
and I said aye as well too. You have draft minutes, and I thought I had the November 21st all wrapped up, but apparently I didn't. But you did get a copy of the 15th one a while ago. You had a chance to review it. I really didn't get any feedback, but if we could, if someone would be kind enough, if you're good with it, to make a motion to accept those minutes for August 15th.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion on the issue. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that.
Oh,
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Abby DiMolina,
aye.
Jacques Zemicki,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye as well too. All right. Thank you, everyone. Is there anything on the agenda that we need to wind up for public comment? Probably not. So we're going to move on at this point. The election of chairs, one day we'll actually have a full body. I mean, if you guys want to do this at some point, I'm fine. The only one who isn't here is Dawn, who generally shows up a lot. So are you good with tabling this still?
Yes.
All right, good. I'll just take that as unanimous consent. So the good old Cannabis Control Commission, they are in full gear lately, which is really refreshing to see. So there is a public comment period which is opened up regarding social consumption and the proposal that they're looking at putting out. Now, I sent you the blurb that came out from the Cannabis Control Commission, which kind of helped to identify the three key areas that they're looking at. In the end, they're looking if there is any kind of public input, there is a deadline of Thursday, the 23rd, under which that has to be done. So with that in mind, any comments or any thoughts upon what you saw? I'm open for anything at the moment with this. And hopefully you did all get a chance to read through it.
The thing that strikes me after I got done looking at all this material is the social consumption means people are going to smoke.
Right.
How many places do you know of in Massachusetts where you can smoke? And I'm not saying marijuana or tobacco, I'm saying smoking. I mean, you go to restaurants, you don't walk in there with a cigar or a cigarette
no.
and smoke. That
No.
means, does that mean that cannabis smokers are going to have to follow the same rules and regulations as tobacco smokers?
I guess,
Go ahead.
Joe, it's a good question. I guess when I think about it more like a cigar bar or somewhere where I think in order for them to have the social consumption, there probably needs to be a pretty sophisticated HVAC system. But that would be my guess of like how it would be. Because not that I think there are a ton of cigar bars. I don't think there are, but I do know when I lived in Boston, there was one in the North End that Stanzi Cigari. It's kind of well known. But I would imagine, I think that socially it's like that. Another thing I would also think about, because and this is a little more out left field, but I used to live in California and there was also very anti-tobacco smoking, but you were able to socially consume hookah. And so I think this is again maybe more along those lines, which definitely I think there should be some serious set of regulations and HVAC and things like that. But I think that that's my impression of how the social consumption of marijuana is being, so as opposed to like people socially smoking together like cigarettes, it's more about a cigar hookah type of situation. And I don't know if anybody else feels differently, but that's my impression. I see Dan
But
nodding. I'm assuming you agree.
one of the things you raised is the heating and ventilation systems, because if one of these smoking bars is set up, I mean, that could get through the whole building that might have 6 different tenants in it. And what do you do? I mean, that stuff gets the smoke, like for a cigarette. You can tell it's in the furniture, it's in the walls, the paint. And what does somebody do when it turns out it's cannabis?
I probably offer to you that first of all, I don't know if I'd use 6 residents because God only knows. I think most people wanting to do this may not necessarily want to have a residential component on Nantucket. I'd
Yeah.
probably tell you if it's going to come before the planning board, they're probably going to look at some type of housing component to it. Now, mind you, anyone entering into that is also going to have to be made aware of the situation. And that'll be up to them whether they say, I'm fine with that, put in all the appropriate controls, or I just don't think this is the job for me. The other board that's going to get very heavily involved in that aspect will probably be the Board of Health,
Yeah.
because that's a big thing with them. I'm hoping that when the Cannabis Control Commission does this, they hammer out some of these details to be able to, make good sense of it and allow people to enter into this the right way, as opposed to when the cannabis industry first started up and it was like the Wild West. So the more they can put into regulation may behoove things, not to overregulate it, but at least to give some really good guidance with that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to address that also, Joe, being that in addition to Barry, I'm also on planning. I would think that usually with something like this, it's we would require it to be, as Barry pointed out, workforce housing, and or year-round housing. But again, I'm assuming if you are working in this facility, you're going to be well aware of the fact that people are going to be consuming marijuana. But but um but I do think it's a good point that when and maybe it's part of our recommendation that if this is something that comes before planning, that just having robust set of proposed, recommendations, like you said, what kind of HVAC. I don't know if and this might be a question, Barry, do you know if there's housing above like a restaurant, do they have to have certain kinds of like ventilation, things like that? I don't know, but
With
we
a
might think about adding something like that, I guess, if
with
it
the
comes up.
conventional restaurants, no, not really. But again, Board of Health is going to want to make sure they generally
Yeah.
that's going to be their bailiwick.
Yeah.
So they're going to want to make sure that there's some type of systems to handle that. And again, to make sure it's not noxious to the surrounding environment. Case in point, we have dealt with the Brotherhood before. They had a somewhat failed venting system, and we had the neighbors complaining to us about it. So unfortunately,
That was one of my first meetings.
oh, there you go. You remember
I
that?
got to listen to the
Yeah,
joyous complaints.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
but Joe, remember when we did our tour, I felt like the facility did not have a really strong odor, so I felt like they did have very sophisticated machinery. Do you remember?
There was no odor at all. Nothing.
Exactly. So, but I think that that's a good point, that we should just say that that should be the goal of as little odor as possible to keep it safe for those who work there, and
Yeah.
then those who, if they live above it. right?
Yeah, well, the thing I thought of was tobacco. I'm thinking people are smoking tobacco. What are the regulations for them? And will it be any different for those smoking cannabis? I would
Uh,
think not, but I don't know.
I'm just going to probably quickly weigh in here, and Dan is being very patient. I can see him in the background. He's been tracking this for a while, and I'm going to give him the floor in a few moments because I am sure he'll give us some insights as well too. But the whole thing was tobacco was the whole secondhand smoke thing, and how people were just being, they had no control over it. And that was really what got into the whole smoking situation with tobacco and the regulations you see in place. I'm not walking away feeling like with cannabis, we're at that same level. I have yet to see the carcinogenic effects of secondhand tobacco, of cannabis smoke. So there are different platforms here. Now, over time, God knows what's going to happen. Again, let me just say to you that whatever we do as a board, we are strictly advisory again. So we will certainly wind up suggesting a lot of things, but it's going to be up to different boards and commissions to implement those things. So let me just stop here for a second. Jacques, do you have anything you'd like to?
No, I'm just listening. The three options they gave didn't seem to. I sort of wondered how they came to pick those options in the handout that you sent around. The three types of usage licenses or whatever. Uh, I didn't. They didn't seem practical.
I think they needed. I know this has been on their agenda for a while, and they needed to start somewhere. I think what you'll see is, like with anything like this, they're going to roll this out, and then there'll be refinements to it, and those refinements will have to take place over time. But Dan's been, excuse me, Dan's really been monitoring this for a bit, and I know he's actually wound up at the State House and testified a little bit as well. So unless there's anything else from you all at the moment, I probably want to pause here for a minute. And if you don't mind, Dan, because I'm sure you'd like to say a few things about it, and we'd love to hear your insights.
I truly appreciate it. And for this meeting, I was like, I'm gonna let Barry call on me. So no, I appreciate it. And yeah, to sort of address a few things. Right now, the public comment period that is happening that ends on Thursday, it's an unofficial public comment period. And I think the CCC is trying to be really deliberate to sort of give space for all the voices from all sides to have that be heard. So it sounds like after this public comment period ends, they will tweak it a bit for that the meeting where they'll be promulgating and actually going through and redlining each of them. And then there will be another 2-week public comment period after that before that gets promulgated. So we're going to have plenty of time to definitely address things as they go. And yeah, when it comes to the 3 license types that they rolled out, I think really, in my impression of it, they're really sort of trying to compare us to the alcohol industry, it seems. So, where we have the supplemental, right, which I'd say that's going to be, right, just for people who aren't aware, that will be able to be attached to existing marijuana establishments. So say, the brick and mortar dispensaries that are out here, they would be able to attach a cafe element to their existing operations. The other one, and I'd say that one really, right, it's more analogous to like a microbrewery or something like that, that may have a tasting room attached, something like that. And then, the hospitality license, that is more analogous to a liquor license, right? Where, yeah, you could attach that to a pre-existing business. So say like a movie theater, for instance, one that might want to serve alcohol to its patrons, similar business model. Now, if you get that hospitality license, you can attach that to a pre-existing business. And then, yeah, the third is that event license, which is analogous to that sort of open bar, maybe at a wedding type approach. So I think they really are trying to sort of address and compare it to the alcohol industry, which really I'd say is the real analog there, right? Where it's a regulated substance for adults over 21 to consume. And yeah, the nuance, Joe, like you touched on, what really changed for the combustion indoors. Whereas before the changes in Chapter 180, everything sort of had to be framed as a private club when it comes to cannabis. So that's where the only club that's online in the States, the Summit Lounge in Worcester, and essentially they had to do the private lounge approach. And that was following the laws basically from tobacco, where no combustion could happen indoors. So basically, that loophole was closed with Chapter 180 to allow for the combustion. And as Barry touched on, right, we have many years, decades now, even of some studies, right, on cannabis consumption. And they say, right, the smoke is not nearly as carcinogenic as tobacco. So I think that's where, when it comes to the public safety, it is a lot. It's a different conversation than tobacco for sure. But I would say also things to keep in mind, where the previous iteration of social consumption, we discussed it, right? Anyone who wanted to do on-site combustion had to get that waiver from the Board of Health. And I'd say still, and as we've discussed it, right? And I think we've all sort of come to agree on this, the special permit process is really where a lot of these things can live, right? So saying that's from municipality to municipality, but specifically Nantucket as well, where obviously there's a lot of nuance on any business that may want to operate here. We can really be intentional at the beginning to say, hey, these are concerns. This is how we'll address it. These are the mechanisms. We can commit to it all then. And yeah, so ideally, right, I am feeling optimistic, and I'm really proud of all of the work we've done here. And genuinely, I appreciate this platform. And there's a reason I'm out on the island today. I was happy to see it on the agenda today. And yeah, I'm excited for the next steps here. But I know it's not just me out here on the island now. There are quite a few folks ready to get things going. So, but yeah, any questions, definitely let me know. But yeah, hopefully that's the short version for us.
Barry, does that mean that you need to be in touch with the Board of Health, or are they just out there free floating and until this all arrives on the island?
I wouldn't even go near them at this point. It's going to be, they're supposed to have a representative on this board.
You're absolutely right. They're supposed to.
Yes, I hold them accountable for that. I'm not going until this thing finally gets settled. I don't think it's worth opening up that can of worms, because there has to be an education that follows through with this. And I would be I'd be a little concerned that it may turn into the opening of when we first started cannabis, and all the concerns without the education underneath it. Dan touched upon some interesting things, though. If you go back to the whole smoking issue, remember, every restaurant that was out there allowed people to smoke. You really didn't have an option. If you walked in and you didn't like it, too bad. Nothing you could do. So people, through their own choices, decided where they would wind up at. And as you can see, I mean, time. The other thing which Dan kind of touched upon a little bit, and I think most of us have come to an awareness of, is that the cannabis industry itself, when it first started, again, I'm very fond of using that term, it was like the Wild West. 5 years out now, there's been a fair amount of education. The stigma of it has reduced itself. And now I think you're beginning to see where this is more closely tracking to and paralleling the alcohol industry that's out there. And that's why you're seeing a lot more diversity occur with this. So there's a few things going on with that. And, that's my take above and beyond with that. Anyone else?
I sent something out a couple days ago on the state that has the highest sales volume of cannabis. And interestingly enough, it's Michigan by a lot, over California, over Colorado, and any place else in the country. But the other interesting thing that I keep looking at right along quarter after quarter are the earnings of these companies.
Yeah, I don't
And
press too far down that rabbit hole at the moment, though.
here's what the Michigan article said. A year ago, it was 90 cents. Now it's 75 cents.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the price just keeps coming down, and you wonder where's the end of it? Where does it end?
It's it's like anything that rolls out brand new, and the first players out there. It's a commodity at the moment, but over time, if it looks like it's going to fly, more people keep jumping on board. And don't forget too, there was a lot of hoops to jump through initially to get even into the industry.
Yeah,
and people, but now that it's pretty well saturated, things they still haven't found their level yet, but I think that's coming.
I don't know. I'm not in tune with what's good stuff and bad stuff, but maybe Dan can help. But I think
Well,
one way, if you look at the alcohol industry, some people like Dewar's or some people like J&B or whatever. Is it going to get that way, or is there any inkling of that happening now with cannabis? I don't know.
I see Dan smiling because he can tell you for certain. But yeah, people do have their favorites. It's not the old days of just growing it in the backyard. The amount of genetic diversity that takes place in the growing yields very different answers to things, and very, very different product, I should say, to things. And people determine whether that product, that one particular strain that they, is that something I like? Is that something that, no, maybe we can find something else? Is that Dan, since you're in the industry and doing that, would you say it's a fairly reasonable overview of things?
And yeah, if I'm tracking what you said there, yeah, that's the beauty of a regulated market, right? You can get options, there's competition, you can try different products, different methods of extraction, different genetics, and really, hone in on what works for you. And yeah, I will say, and I agree with Barry there, and I'll try to keep it short and sweet here, but things are starting to level out a bit. And that's where if you follow even within the state of Massachusetts, you're seeing some things start to shift a bit. And I'm optimistic about the year 2025 where we may see the market settle a bit. But yeah, the beauty of it, the more operators, the more options, and it's sort of a double-edged sword because that can affect supply and demand and all that stuff. But yeah, the beauty is at the end of the day, more products, you might be able to find something that works for you. And like I've said before, Joe, I can't wait till I have the spot out on the island. You're going to be one of the first people out there, and we're gonna find you your product, okay?
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me right now you had something in mind offline to cure and help them.
Well, that's where Joe. We got to go get a coffee. That's a whole different discussion. But no, there you go.
And here's the other thing too, Joe, is that it really isn't just the marijuana itself, but it's the availability to have it in a whole bunch of different forms. I mean, the most recent thing that you've seen come out is cannabis beer, cannabis soda.
Yes.
So and believe me, the home market may boggle your mind a little bit as well too. People can easily go down to their local cannabis facility and buy the actual plant product itself, bring it home, and infuse it into a number of different products. And that market, it's a little side market, but I do see it taking off. It kind of parallels the social consumption aspect. So it's been going on for a while. It's just that it's interesting to see how much it's mainstream marketed into doing that. And like I said, again, it's just where you're getting your initial source from, but what you can do with it afterwards. I mean, God, short of having the plant itself, you can make your own gummies, you can make your own butter, you can make your own infused oils. They can do that with rosemary as well too. But anyways, it's out there and it's happening. And I think that's a very silent, untapped market that is still floating out there. So I can, social consumption is reaching its time. That's probably what I'm going to say to you. Let me stop there for a minute. Do you have anything you want to?
What I was going to ask is, I think a couple years ago, one of the two dispensaries here on the island won a New England prize for having the best
Green Lady.
quality. Was it Green?
Yes.
Green Lady?
Yep.
I've not heard anything about that lately.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, the only Nicole, I'm sure, is busy. We haven't seen her for a while, but she was very active in terms of working with us and talking to us about things as well too. You know,
I think they're working on that other location. They do have another location
they
on the
do off
mainland.
island. Yes,
Yeah.
they do. They do. So I guess the question is, and Dan, you brought up something that I wasn't aware of, was that Gesundheit. That there would be this initial round of people being able to put comment into the Cannabis Control Commission, but apparently there'll be a second round, and that may be, if we're going to do anything or put any comment to it, that may be the juncture under which to do it. Because in that second round, you will have reached, out to the public, see what their thoughts are, and there may be a little refinement that happens. Do you know if there's a second date established for that yet? I haven't seen anything.
If I may, through the chair.
Please.
Yeah. They haven't announced it yet. I know, I believe the public meeting where they'll be discussing the red line is at the end of this month. So that would put it the 2 weeks probably sometime in February, I'm assuming. And they did have the timeline in the PowerPoint, and I think it's somewhere around there, mid-February.
Right. Thank you. So if there's really not too much else on this, the question I want to throw out to you all is, do you want to submit a comment as a board, or would you prefer to wait a bit and see what comes out of this? If it so happens that that second meeting is going to occur before our next meeting in February, there's no unearthly reason why we can't have a special meeting if you all want to deal with it. Or you may be like, fine, we're good. We really don't have any comments here, and just see how it plays itself out. So I'm sorry, that's a lot. So let me break it down. Excuse me.
Will that mean that we will see the changes that are being proposed, and then we have an opportunity to get back on round two?
I think I would imagine so. I would imagine so. I can't tell you with 100% surety. Sorry. But I think there'll be that opportunity, and certainly I'll be keeping my eyes open for it. Joe, you're the eagle eye with things too, so you may see it before I do, but we'll share amongst ourselves and see what y'all want to do. So does that sound like a reasonable game plan, is wait for round one to occur? And then if we so decide, we can comment on round two. It's up to you all.
That may be a preferred route.
Jock says yes, Abby.
I
Yeah,
agree.
but wait a minute. Jacques is over at Brant Point Beach.
Yeah, don't I wish?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wish it was that warm over there, right?
Yeah, that's Brant Point Beach today. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyways, that looks gorgeous. All right, so
Well,
is there any further discussion, or because if not, then I'm going to take it that we wait, we see what comes in, and then we'll make a decision from there.
I think
I think
that's
we're all good for that, and I'll take that by consensus, if that sounds like the case. Going, gone. All right. Thanks, everyone. Let me see where are we at here. I really don't have too much else for you. That's probably the biggest thing going on at the moment. Is there anything else you'd all liked to get into with things? Is there just anything going on there we need to know about?
Well, there's a new director at the Commonwealth level, but I read the interview he had with somebody, and he's at ground zero. So
Yep.
he's got a lot of work to do to get caught up.
No, I don't think it's just a matter of catching up. I somehow think there's a political quagmire that's gonna have to he's gonna have to bellwether as well.
Yeah.
Things, yeah.
But he's worked for a local town in that area, so he understands politics, just the way you understand politics here, Barry.
Don't frighten me. Do not frighten me. Some would argue I don't have a clue.
Or we'll send Jacques in there and he'll take
There
care
you
of
go.
it.
Yeah,
You know,
I hate politics.
There you go. Put out the beach chair. Listen, with that background, put out the beach chairs. Beverage of choice, and I think people will probably be a little bit more amenable toward working with things. Sometimes it doesn't take much.
True.
All right.
Okay.
So if there's really nothing else out there, then we are technically scheduled to meet on. Sometimes I got to watch what I type. I've got January 20th. That's very good. That's a real bad typo. Cut and paste is the enemy here. But I believe we're at February 20th for our next meeting.
You are correct. February 20th.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I should have just was flying through things. Too many things going on simultaneously. If there's nothing else, I know that you're all busy and it's a busy day. I will gladly take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
So, Joe,
Aye.
Shock,
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
and the chair says aye as well too. Thank you everyone for showing up. I really appreciate it. Have yourself a fine day.
You
Bye, guys.
too.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Everyone,
Thank you and bye.
bye
Take
bye.
care of that baby.
I will. She's sleeping.
Oh.
All right.
I don't know if you guys could.